Hi guys, 18Dapper here, and this video, something a little bit different. Should have been a match preview for Doncaster Rovers versus Bury, but unfortunately they've been expelled from the Football League. So in this video I'm going to give my thoughts on the Bury and Bolton situation. Let's get the video started. I got that kind of So guys, thank you for joining me on this video. It's a difficult video to record, even though Bolton and Bury are not teams that I'm very close to. I don't really follow their results, but as a football fan, reading and watching videos from this week has really hit home quite hard. I can't imagine what it'd be like to lose my football club. So yeah, my thoughts do go out to the fans of Bolton and Bury. Good news for Bolton, the takeover has happened with Football Ventures. Yep, with Football Ventures. That happened yesterday, I believe. So fortunately for them, they have not been expelled from the Football League. But we'll start with Bolton rather than Bury. Bolton, they've been in some financial difficulty for some time. It all started after Eddie Davies revoked his investment into the club, and it came out at that time that the club were in around £200 million worth of debt. That for me is absolutely staggering, and how it got allowed to get to that stage should be what the EFL are looking into now, to make sure that other teams don't go the same way as what Bolton and Bury have. Davies offered to wipe clear £125 million of that, and that kind of worked as a bit of an incentive to sell the club. And that did happen in 2016. A consortium, Sports Shield, bought Bolton, and that was led by a person called Dean Holdsworth. Holdsworth's shareholding in Sports Shield ended up being bought out by Ken Anderson a few years later, and then since then the club has just gone further and further into financial difficulties. Players, staff not being paid, there's been player strikes, winding up orders, the list goes on for Bolton. So as a Bolton fan, I can only imagine what you've gone through over the last couple of seasons. Promotions, relegations, just not knowing if you're going to have a club. But happily survived expulsion. As I said earlier, it's sold to Football Ventures. Hopefully this means that you've turned the corner and can start to move forward. For me, the game that never was, the Bolton-Doncaster game that I was going to go to earlier this season, I'd like it to be replayed. Bolton Stadium, never been there. It's one that I wanted to tick off of my 92. But depending what the EFL decide to do with that, either give Donny the 3 points or replay it, we will see in the future. Moving on to Bury, unfortunately it's not such a happy ending for Bury fans. The takeover fell through at the final hour just before the deadline, and unlike Bolton, I believe Bury haven't provided enough information or enough financial information to prove that they could survive the season. So unfortunately for them, they've been expelled from the Football League. And something that sticks from this week is a phone call from a Bury fan called Kate onto TalkSport. A very passionate phone call. I think she said everything that a true fan would say. It's one of those things where a football club is a massive part of your life, regardless of who you support. I think for me, more so for fans who support the local team. That's not a dig at fans who support one of the top 6 in the Premier League or anything like that. I just think there's a bit more engagement with clubs like Donny, like Bury, where it's a community club. They do a lot of stuff within the community, and I think there's just a bit more of a connection there for me personally. If you're a supporter of one of the top six, in the comments down below if you disagree. This channel's all about fan engagement, so it'd be nice to read your comments. But for me, my personal opinion is that community clubs are in the lower leagues more than in the Premier League, and it's sad to see one of those community clubs go. Bury's financial problems started in 2001-2002. ITV Digital collapsed, and then that brought Bury into administration. And at that time, Bury was saved by a supporters campaign that raised enough money to cover Bury's debt at that time. And then in 2012, Bury were put under a transfer embargo. That was after falling into financial difficulties once again, mainly due to poor attendances this time. Stuart Day, a property investor, became chairman in 2013 and said that the club was £1.5 million had been invested into the club, and that was mainly to pay off the debt. In December 2018, Steve Dale bought Bury for £1. One single pound. So he bought the club and their debt for that single pound. And then in February 2019, Dale had to pay an outstanding tax bill, and that was to avoid a winding up order. Staff and players were not paid for the March salaries, and then that made financial issues resurface. And then in April 2019, Dale admitted that the club's finances were far in excess of what he'd understood at the time of buying the club, and then at that point he put the club up for sale. Now for me, surely buying a club or buying anything, investing a lot of money in anything, you do your research on it first, and clearly he didn't do his research on buying on Bury, and I don't think the EFL did the proper fit and proper tests that they should do for people buying clubs. I think the EFL have got a lot of questions to answer. Could they have done more? I don't know. I don't work in the EFL. I don't really know the internal workings of the EFL, but from an outsider looking in this week, it looks like they have missed a lot of steps that could have prevented this or picked it up a lot earlier. To add to Bury's financial difficulties, there was a period where they were expected to have an income of around 180 grand. In that same period, the expected outgoings for wages, tax, everything that is an outgoing, bills, stadium, whatever, it was expected that £1.6 million was going out of the club when only £180,000 was coming in. That for me is where the EFL need to step in with every club. They're the governing body of the league. They should be taking a lot more interest in making sure that clubs' incomings outweigh that of their outgoings. Clubs, effectively, they are businesses. Us as fans, they're our club, but for the owners it is a business, and for me, they should be making sure that the business is profitable, and if it's not profitable, they need to have contingencies in place so that what has happened to Bury this week doesn't happen to any other club. I think the EFL need to take a more proactive stance in that to make sure that incomings outweigh the outgoings. Simple as that. To avoid a winding up petition, Dale proposed a CVA, which is a company voluntary arrangement, and this is where the club's creditors would be paid in full, but the unsecured creditors would only be paid 25% of what they were owed. Now, by bringing this into play, this led to the 12-point deduction from the EFL at the start of this season, and then in addition to that, the EFL then required proof of Bury's financial stability for the 19-20 season. Unfortunately for Bury, Steve Dale just couldn't provide satisfactory enough proof or evidence, and then that led the EFL to postpone the first six games in Bury's season. Dale rejected an offer on the 20th of August, which could have potentially seen Bury survive as a club, and the reason for him rejecting this offer was that he thought that he could get a better offer. Again, for me, with the position that Bury were in financially, that's the point where I don't know if EFL have got the power. They should have forced that sale through to ensure Bury's survival. Clearly, the owner was in it for his own personal gain and not the club. Just my personal opinion. Later on, reportedly, Dale accepted an offer from CNN Sporting Risk. This is the deal that fell through hours before the deadline, unfortunately, and around 11 PM on the 27th of August, it was announced that Bury were no longer an EFL team, and that was difficult to take. I can't imagine how difficult it was to take for the Bury fans. My thoughts really do go out to you guys. It's a tough one because I don't know if the EFL could step in and force sales through. But I watched the debate on Sky Sports a couple of nights ago, caught up on YouTube with Phil Parkinson on, and Andy Townsend said something that really got my back up. They were talking about Bury and Bolton, and he said that you can't compare them under the same rules and regulations. I'm sorry, but yes you can. They're a football club, they're a business, however you want to look at it. It doesn't matter that Bolton have got X amount of supporters whereas Bury have got this amount of supporters. It doesn't matter that Bolton have got more income or more potential income and Bury have got less potential income. All that is an extra couple of zeros on a spreadsheet. For me, every club, the 72 clubs in the EFL, should abide by the same rules and regulations so that it's a fair playing field. You can't judge somebody because they're a bigger club. It'd leave teams like Bury, you could argue Donny, without a chance. So that got me back up, definitely got me back up. And I think that's one of the problems in modern day football. If you're a big club and you've got a chance of making money, you're favoured, and it's not very nice. So yeah, I think I'm going to wrap this video up here. In summary, my thoughts, I think it was mismanagement from the owners of both Bolton and Bury, not just the owners who have been there recently, but past owners as well. I think it's been a domino effect that has led to the cards falling down. I think the EFL need to look at their own rules and regulations and their way of keeping tabs on all 72 clubs, because this could have been any of them. It's unfortunate that it's Bolton and Bury, Coventry not in a very good position, and I dread to think the amount of other clubs within the EFL who were one bad deal away from the exact same fate. And for me, the EFL should have tabs on every single one of them. I hope the quick background on what led Bolton and Bury to get to this situation was enjoyable for you guys to watch or informative. I hope I got it correct. There may be parts of my research that wasn't. If you are a Bolton or Bury fan and I've got anything wrong, please correct me in the comments down below. I wish this was a match preview. Bury was one of the games that I was going to. Hopefully you guys retain your club, start in a lower division and return from the ashes. It would be nice to see it in the Football League once again. If you've enjoyed this video, big thumbs up for us please. As I say, comment in the section down below, subscribe if you haven't already. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.